Now, we're all quick to say, yes, I was a sinner, but a God hater. I hated God. What do you mean I hated God? It's exactly what the Bible teaches in Romans chapter 1. You hated God. As a matter of fact, let me share with you something. Sunday morning is the greatest hour of idolatry in America. Did you know that? Now, people always come to me when I say, you hated God. And they'll say, no, I didn't. I'll say, yes, you did. No, I didn't. I loved God. No, you didn't. What do you mean I didn't love God? I loved God. No, you didn't love God. You loved a figment of your own imagination. You know, pastors sometimes will ask me to come and teach on the attributes of God, and I'll always say, you probably don't want me to do that. Why? Because it'll probably split your church. Teaching on the attributes of God will split my church. Yes, it will. Because if I start teaching on the love of God, fine. But if I start teaching on the justice of God, the holiness of God, the sovereignty of God, I'll make it about 3 days in most churches, if that long. And then you know what will happen? People will start standing up and go, that's not my God. I could never love a God like that. That's why people all over America today are sitting in churches and they are committing idolatry because they are not singing to the God of the Bible. They are singing to a God they made with their own minds that looks more like Santa Claus than he does Yahweh. Well, that's my God. Well, good luck. I'll never forget Richard Owen Roberts preaching in a conference that I preached in the following year. And they were telling me all kinds of stories about him and everything. I personally never met the man. But I hope this is not an urban legend. But they said he was preaching somewhere. And he mentioned that AIDS was the judgment of God. And some lady got so angry she couldn't see straight. And she stood up and she said, AIDS is not the judgment of God. And he said, ma'am, what is your proof? And she said, because little babies die of AIDS. And therefore AIDS is not the judgment of God. And Richard Owen Roberts said this, how many little babies do you think God killed when He flooded the earth in the time of Noah? You don't love a God like that, do you? He's not politically correct. You think about it. We're talking about God. We're talking about a God that is wonderful and as terrible as He is wonderful. As C.S. Lewis always said, and I'm fond to repeat, He's not a tame lion. And let me tell you something, young people. There's this idea today in your music and everything else that in order to be relevant, you got to look like the world, sound like the world. Well, I got news for you. In order to be relevant, the only way to be relevant is to be totally different from the world. And totally different from most contemporary Christian musicians and totally different from all these Christian idols that are springing up. I would prefer that we put all of them in a boat, send them to an island somewhere and sing the doxology as we cut them loose and let them float. Because it does more harm than it does good. You want to be relevant? Then don't be politically correct. Be biblically correct. Oh, you're probably going to get stoned or burned at the stake. But you'll go out with the glory of God upon you.